Well, here we are on a Sunday morning, the 4th of June, as we've gone from a couple of days of very warm to hot weather late last week to a stretch of cooler than normal temperatures that's going to be with us probably all week long, and who knows, maybe even beyond that. But one of the common themes through most of the East is that it's going to be on the dryish side, at least for now. We'll talk all about that and so much more on this Sunday morning Joe and Joe Weather Show, which of course is brought to you by.
Oh, is that my cue?
Well, I
Oh,
mean, whose cue do you think it is? Desi
well, normally,
Arnaz?
normally you go through the whole. Never mind. We're brought to you this morning, ladies and gentlemen, by Omni Landscape and Garden Supply, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in beautiful downtown southwestern West Babylon. And we always praise them because they have everything that you need for gardening. If you need mulch in the wintertime, if you need salt, I mean, no matter what you need in your yard, in your garden, in your on your property, you can get it at Omni Landscape and Garden Supply. Again, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue. You can go down there yourself, or you can put in your orders at OmniTrueValue.com and dial if you need to make an order by phone. For those of you who still use a telephone, 631-756-1125 for the best. Let's underscore that word, the best prices in town. Long Island's largest rock salt source, although you probably don't need rock salt now, but if you need mulch or anything else, you can get it right there at OmniTrueValue.com. Joe.
And our affiliate Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing weather network on the planet. The link, the referral link, is at the top of the chat board, and use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show so that you can get.
Oh, 10.
Wake up!
I'm sorry. 10% off. 10, ladies and gentlemen. Not 9, not 5, not 3. 10% off anything that you put, any order that you place over at Tempest. They will be happy to cut the price down by 10%, but you must use the special code Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is where you are right now.
Now that our infomercials are over. Good Sunday morning to everyone on the chat board and those of you lurking in the background. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Sundays at 11 a.m., Monday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Turn your notifications on, and you will never miss us.
And I should also point out, Joe,
yes,
at Central Park, an auspicious weather morning, because this morning the temperature at the Park of Central in the middle of Manhattan got down to 49 degrees. And you say, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, it is a big deal. It was the first low temperature in the 40s since 2023 years ago. And the last time there was a low in June chillier than 49 was back in 1980. Let me point out that this reading came less than 48 hours after we hit a high at Central Park of 91, the first temperature in the 90s this season, and 7 weeks after the earliest low in the 70s on record on April the 14th. So it was a cool morning right here in Putnam Valley. We got down all the way to 43 degrees. For me, not cold enough. I mean, I wish we got down into the... I know Chuck Cardillo mentioned that he had frost, a touch of frost this morning. I would have loved to see that here in Putnam Valley. I would have loved to see temperatures in the 30s just to kill off all of the bugs and creepy things that are out there right now. But it did get nice and cool, and I'm very happy about that.
Well, that's good. And actually, this pattern's great for me here in Northeast Georgia, because anytime we have blocking like this, I get all the cool air to come down the eastern seaboard. And this front made it all the way down to the Georgia coast and just about to the Florida panhandle. So it works for me. No heat, no humidity here. But yeah, it's The weather world, when it comes to nice weather, usually splits into two camps. You got the people who it could never be warm enough, and then you have the other people that said never could be cool enough. And then, of course, you've got the subset of people that, I don't understand the sub. There's a small subset of people that love humidity. I don't get it. I really don't.
Well,
Uh,
those are the people who are in training for retiring and going down to Florida for the rest of their lives.
I suppose, but still, all in all, though, again, we lamented for snow lovers. This is a pattern that for snow lovers, would pray for in the dead of January and February, and never seemed to get it then, but we're getting it now. And I'm kind of looking here, just sort of looking at everything from a broad perspective over the next, over what we've been in the next couple of weeks. I mean, to me, the upper air almost looks like something from what you should have maybe a month ago or 6 weeks ago. It's fairly amplified, and the jets are, the split flows all over the place. Jet stream much further south than you would otherwise have it. Um, there's nothing that to me that screams that anything's going to change overall anytime soon.
Yeah, and it always seems to come up, as you just mentioned, the fact that we never seem to get the pattern that everybody wants. Well, not everybody, but a lot of the snow lovers and winter weather lovers want during the winter months. We always seem to, and I think I may even have mentioned this sometime during this past winter when we were like lamenting, or the snow lovers were lamenting, like, oh my goodness, we're not going to see anything for the rest of the winter season. And I said, yes, you will. You'll see it in late April or May. It'll suddenly evolve, and it sure enough did. Maybe not exactly in April, but it started evolving in May and is now spilled over or carried over into the month of June. And for so far as I'm concerned, one that does not like extreme heat or extreme humidity, you can have this pattern, hopefully, right on through the rest of June, July, August. Keep it going. Of course, by then, by September, if it keeps going until the end of August or September, then nature will say, well, time to flip, time to go to a different pattern, and we'll go back to the same type of warm weather or non-wintry weather pattern that we've had in recent winter seasons.
Was it sub? I didn't look. Was it subnormal temperature wise for May?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'd like to say yes. I'd like to say yes, but I just don't have the statistical information in front of me to back up whatever I say. So
all right.
I would
Well,
just say,
and that's a fair statement. I mean, I claim total ignorance. It just occurred to me to ask the question. I can check too. Let's let's look at the surface map. Let's get things going on this Sunday, where we've got nothing but higher pressures in eastern Canada across the Great Lakes. Nice little northeast isobar that runs from southeastern New England. There's actually a low that's developing east of the northern New England coast and south of Nova Scotia that's out there, analyzed as 1,009 millibar low, and it really isn't going to be going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, it may be around for much of this week, and that's probably going to be the driver of weather in the east. There's a little weak low in West Virginia with a trailing front that's dropping southward. That actually might trigger off a few showers and thunderstorms in a small area in the Appalachian Mountains, in the central and southern Appalachian Mountains later today. We'll see if it winds up coming to pass. And the front that came through Friday night, early Saturday, I mean, look at this. It's all the way down. They've had wind shifts to the northeast as far south as Savannah. Actually, I'm even seeing some northeast isobars, but the dew points are significantly higher on the other side. So that's why the frontal boundary, if you want to look at just the wind alone, you could put the front down south of Jacksonville. But when you look at the dew points, it is a bit further to the north. And there's not really a whole lot happening weather-wise across much of the eastern two-thirds of the U.S. It's a fairly benign-looking surface map from coast to coast. And when we check out the satellite loop this morning, you can see the clouds backing in from Maine. It's a solid overcast there. Then you start to get a little bit of breakage when you move into New Hampshire and Vermont and western Massachusetts and Connecticut. But that western edge is kind of close. So if you're wedged in between that, you've got blue skies and sun. I'm assuming, by the way, that there's not much in the way of smoke going on, correct?
I would. I have not had a chance to check the smoke map this morning, but looking at the sky this morning, a lot of billowing cumulus clouds and a nice hue, HUE, a nice hue or tint of blue. So yeah, I would not expect that we have very much in the way of smoky skies this morning. Thank God.
Now we do have quite a bit of cloud cover in Virginia, in North Carolina, in down into South Carolina. Some breaks in that mess, but still cloud cover there. And here's the wider U.S. loop as the frames load up and start to move along. By the way, Tropical Storm Arlene, which formed from that system in the Northeast Gulf, drifted southward. And if you look on the loop, you can see the remnants of that now moving out of the Florida Straits and into the Bahamas. The low-level circulation is still evident, but now it's completely separated from the thunderstorms, which have run out well to the northeast. We pointed out late last week, we talked about, strong westerly winds in the upper atmosphere across the Gulf and the Bahamas at about 40 knots or more. So this thing was not going to survive and not be an issue for anybody. And sure enough, that wound up being the case as that moves out. And then, we've sort of had this persistent area. Given the way the pattern is set up and not much has really changed. We watched last week where much of the thunderstorm activity and severe weather has been in the southern and western plains and extending up through the Rockies, and that remains the case today. You can see where the clouds are this morning. On the other side of that, it's quiet and calm to the west coast, which I'm sure the west coast people are happy about. There's not a whole lot with watches and warnings either. And we do have some rain on the radar in New England, particularly in Maine. There's actually a band of heavy rain and maybe even some thunderstorms in there coming into southwestern Maine. It's like a little hook that is moving along to the southwest. Some echoes aloft in Massachusetts, especially in eastern Massachusetts. Down to, they start to dry out a bit when you get down to southeast Mass and Rhode Island. But, if there's one place today and the next day or so where there might be a little bit of rain from that low offshore, it's probably in this zone, from coastal Maine down into coastal southeastern New England. I don't think we're going to have to worry too much about that coming back westward.
I'm trying to remember in the Rolodex, the meteorological Rolodex that's locked into my head. People ask me sometimes, what is your favorite weather app? And I always point to my forehead because I don't know. I've had this propensity for being able to remember specific numbers or things. But I can't honestly remember, Joe, a shortwave dropping down through Atlantic Canada and then closing off the way this upper level system is doing and heading on a northeast to southwest trajectory. I mean, this is really a very weird pattern that we're into, and the fact remains. And yesterday was weird. I mean, we certainly had a few showers late Friday and Friday night, and then yesterday it looked like the skies were trying ever so hard to break to allow for a little bit of sunshine. And meanwhile, in the satellite picture, I'm noticing over parts of Pennsylvania, some really concentrated but really big boomers, big thunderstorms over portions of central and west central Pennsylvania, and they were moving south and southwest. It was really a weird pattern that we're locked into right now.
Yeah, I was running the upper air while you were talking about it, and you could see looks like there's a blocking high of some kind between the Azores and Iceland that is splitting the flow, and nothing can move eastward. So there's also another upper low that's along 50 north, somewhere around 50 or 55 west, moving eastward. So slowly, and everything's just sort of locked away. So when you got energy that came down from southeastern Canada, instead of getting ejected to the east, it was basically forced to go southwestward. And yeah, it's a very strange. You get strange movements when you have these blocking patterns, and you tend to see them. You do see them in the spring. It's just that I don't know if we've seen something like this in quite a while. This has been fairly weird. And yeah, you look at the radar and you're always looking at things moving west to east or in some fashion with a west to east component. And now you're watching stuff moving not only east to west but actually almost north to south. It's all very bizarre. There's your marginal risk in western North and South Carolina that we talked about earlier. General thunderstorms are being indicated today, by the way, in northern New York, northwestern Vermont, into western New York. A little patch there. And
Don't you think that area of general thunderstorms might have been extended into central and northern Maine based upon what we just saw on the radar? I mean,
you would think.
Yeah.
You would think. Let me refresh this just in case. You know how they love to wait for us to use the maps and then they update them immediately because after all they may be listening.
Hey Charlie, how come you don't have anything in northern? All right, I'll put it up there right now.
The Joes have it. Exactly. So this is our risk area. There's not a whole lot severe weather-wise going on. That's another thing about this particular pattern in a time where you would normally see areas of severe weather. Maybe not every night, but you get some good stretches. It's been confined to the western plains, and now we've kind of went into this quiet zone. Now I would point out that for Tuesday into Wednesday morning, SPC does have general thunderstorms. I'm sorry, let me see what this is. This is Tuesday to Wednesday. I've skipped Monday into Tuesday. Okay, hold on. So this is Monday into Tuesday with that western New York stuff and in the Appalachians. I did this.
You mean to tell me that I can't? I mean, because of a previous engagement, this would be the perfect day for me. I would go outside on the tractor mower, and because all these little white things are popping up on my lawn right now. I know my wife would be able to tell me what those are. I just want to get rid of it. I just want to do the lawn. Can't do it today because we have a previous engagement this afternoon. But tomorrow, now this is a little bit of a surprise to me. So tomorrow there's a chance for...
No, not tomorrow. Tuesday. You're fine Tuesday. Tomorrow.
Yeah. Great. So tomorrow
I had the maps. Let me start this again because I had the maps off by a day. So there's your risk area for today. Northwest Georgia, eastern Tennessee except the far northeast, and northwest Alabama, also in South Texas. Right. General thunderstorms. No thunderstorms being indicated anywhere in the northeast and mid-Atlantic states back to the Great Lakes. So that's today. Tomorrow, and you're right, maybe they should have put a small area in Maine. Okay, now tomorrow they have it in northern New York and western New York, and then also a small area on the east slopes of the southern Appalachians, western North and South Carolina. Okay, otherwise we've got general thunderstorms. Now, Tuesday into Wednesday. Now, this is where I think we might, looking at that upper air, that very, very cold upper air, I may add, and a short wave that's going to be dropping down from Atlantic Canada straight southward during the day on Monday. I would not be at all surprised that at the very least we'll see some scattered general thunderstorms. And who knows? It's a strong June sun. Is not the air is going to be cold and somewhat unstable. Maybe we might get some low top thunderstorms with an isolated severe cell here and there. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Pea-sized hailers, as I used to remember some of the guys over at the Weather Service referring to pea-sized hail. I mean that whenever you get that cold pool aloft. And you just said it, with a strong June sun working on it. Now, maybe they're just simply putting and I'm sure this is the case. I mean, it's 3 days? This is day 3?
Yes, this is Tuesday into Wednesday.
Okay, so what they're doing is right now they're alerting you to the fact that there could be thunderstorms in and around that area in the Northeast on Tuesday. Now, over the next 48 hours, they'll be looking at this, analyzing it, working on it. I'm sure that tomorrow, we may very well see an area of marginal risk pop up within that zone. And if not, certainly it'll happen on Tuesday. And in fact, I wouldn't even be surprised, Joe, as you just mentioned, maybe even a little severe, slight risk severe in that area, because that's always the case with these little blotches, these little pools of cold air that take place. And we could say, well, I mean, we saw that on Friday.
Right.
The parts of the Northeast on Friday. Originally, we were supposed to be only in general thunderstorm. But in fact, if you remember, at the beginning of last week, we were speculating, said, there's a pretty good front coming down on Friday. How come they don't have us in any thunderstorm coverage? They didn't. Then they worked us into general thunderstorms. And before all over said and done, I mean, I was seeing pictures on the internet in our area of people showing me, look at this, look at the hail that fell,
Yeah.
That could very well happen again on Tuesday.
And I just sort of read quickly through their discussion. They just it's all general thunderstorms. There's no severe weather risk being indicated at the moment, but they really didn't address anything with regards to the Northeast because they knew that you and I would be talking about it extensively. They felt that, that would just be redundant if they, said the same thing we did. So here's your rainfall forecast. A lot of folks are, complaining about the fact that it's been a while since we've seen a widespread rainfall event, and much of the mid-Atlantic states showing no rain for the next 7 days. Southern portions of the Northeast, minimal. Now, you do have northern New England, northern and eastern New England, where you're talking about half an inch to an inch plus, and I think the radar bears that out with where the low is and, all the rotation that's going on with that. Not a whole lot in the southeast, some heavier rains in South Florida, but ample rains across Texas, northwestward through the southern plains, and then northward from there into the Rockies all the way up, where we're looking at 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half. So, a lot of these areas are fighting some long-term drought situations, so that certainly will help the cause there. Now, here's the upper air going forward. And again, as you said, this strange pattern. You watch this energy that stretches out. This is going back to Saturday, stretches out into a trough in Labrador, southwest into Maine, cuts off a low off the coast there, practically sitting right on Cape Cod tonight. There's a cutoff low. You've got a big blocking high over Lake Winnipeg. You got a couple of upper lows off the west coast, north of 50 north, for the most part, back out to the Gulf of Alaska. And, that eastern system really doesn't move very much. It just sort of rotates around and around all week. And, you get this short wave that comes down on Tuesday. It's a little hard to see on this wider view. I'll show you on the tight view in a moment. But there's one that comes down on Tuesday, later Tuesday night. There's another one that comes down on Thursday. But more of the energy with that actually drops down into the lower Ohio Valley and then swings across Virginia. So that might be interesting for me later in the week. We'll see. But the bottom line is, you've got cold upper air troughing. You've got a ridge mostly in the Canadian West pushing northwestward with a flow out of Canada. I mean, this is where our air is going to be coming from. And it's not warm air, okay? For this time of year, the sun compensates a lot. If you get a sunny day and you reflexively will go back up into the 70s if you get enough sun. But this is a northwest flow that just screams cooler than normal temperatures, until further notice.
Yeah, in fact, on the chat board, Cardillo asking me, would I call this a Rex block? Yeah, I would. Normally, with a Rex block, you normally see the closed or cut off low in the southwestern United States with a big high over or just above it.
You mean like this? I just moved it up to next Tuesday.
Yeah.
When the cutoff in California drops into the southwest.
Right.
And then you've got troughing that's, what looks like another cutoff in western New York with a trough that's back down in the middle Mississippi Valley, sort of getting ready to pivot it around, and a ridge in the middle.
Right. And so you're right, the Baja low.
Right.
You get those kind of thing. But this time, at least in the immediate future, in the next couple of days, what we have is the version of the Baja low that's now over the northeastern United States. And you got this big, huge ridge of high pressure located or situated to the north. And again, it's not the low over the northeast. The upper level low can't move on its normal track to the north and east. I can't move it. There's a giant ridge to the north. So what does the ridge do? It says, well, you're not going anywhere, and pushes that upper level low south and west across the northeast, which again is kind of a highly anomalous pattern. But yeah, then
you also have the more progressive flow is actually up in central and northern Canada, is completely split from what's going on to the south of that.
Right.
So nothing can go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the current state of affairs in Washington. That's my one political comment.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll write that down and go on from here. Here's let's go close up on the U.S. and you can see this shortwave for Tuesday.
And I want to thank all the people on the chat board explaining to me what those white little things are on my lawn.
It's clover.
The same thing. It's clover. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm looking over a 3-leaf clover that I overlooked B3.
all right.
Anyway, that's a Bugs Bunny reference if you didn't know it.
What does the heck the Pat BFD mean by saying that?
What did he say? I can't see.
Pat BFD? He said put a bra on that.
I think he's looking at because I drew on the map.
Oh.
And it looks like,
okay.
I mean, I got years ago now, it was years ago, I actually had a map that looked like that for a Facebook post where I made no reference to anything sexual about it, and apparently the algos caught it and they banned my account for life. Until I had to explain to them that it was a weather map, and then they unbanned me.
It's obviously that this, not all, but some people are obsessed with certain things.
Anatomy, in regard to the anatomy. Yes. Okay. So here's the upper low. That's in you see how it drops off the New England coast, and then it just sits there. You got the big ridge over Lake Winnipeg. You got a cutoff low that's off the coast of Southern California. And then that upper low just spins around, and here comes that short wave for Tuesday. And it's sort of like an arm or a bicycle spoke, if you want to describe it that way. And it drops southward through upstate New York and then off the coast. It'll probably mean to me, now I disagree with the digital temperature forecast for Wednesday, or of temperatures in the middle and 70s, or even middle and upper 70s. I don't know. I think that's too high. I was thinking more along the lines of upper 60s and low 70s on Wednesday, even though it could be in the 70s certainly tomorrow and for Tuesday. But cooler on Wednesday after this short wave goes by. I mean, it's just basically reinforcing the cool air. And here's another one that swings around on Thursday, only that goes further west and drops down into Virginia, and then carves out as something that goes offshore. Another upper low drops down into Georgia. I mean, this is just sort of this endless parade of a cool flow out of Canada that doesn't really relax until maybe, I don't know, later next week, or at least tries to relax later next week. Maybe it opens the door to some rain after next weekend. If this is correct, I don't know. It's hard to say. But it still wants to keep throwing troughs in the east, and this time of year, if they're in one spot, you could wind up getting rain for days and days and days, and if they set up differently, like this one seems to be setting up differently, you can be dry and for days and days and days and days, other than the peppering of thunderstorms with whatever short waves come through.
Interesting that the CPC, the Climate Prediction Center, for the first, I mean, right through the 14th of June, Flag Day, they have our part of the country in below normal temperatures, and yet their experimental 3 to 4 week prog covers the entire eastern United States in above normal temperatures. And I said, well, that's quite a flip. So I guess they're expecting that we go through a couple of weeks of unseasonably cool weather, and then all of a sudden, we're suddenly going to jump into a spell of unseasonably warm weather. Or
when was that 3 to 4 week forecast put out?
Friday. They always put it out on Friday.
Friday?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. These patterns sometimes tend to hold. They look like when they set up, they look like they're going to break down after a week or two, and then they wind up lasting a lot longer. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And here's the surface in play. Again, it's not really showing a whole lot in terms of rainfall around the country, other than some stuff that forms diurnally in the plains. In the east, you got this rotating low, as we said, and that stays there all week. So it just keeps the cool flow from Canada. The cooler air spigots opened up. Maybe it starts to get a little warmer late in the week and into Saturday. The next important cold front looks like it comes through sometime next Monday. Where we've got some showers. And again, if there's a cutoff to our south, maybe that brings up some rain later next week. So perhaps the pattern shifts a bit in the longer term to bring some more wet weather rather than what we're seeing right now.
And over the years, we've been talking about how the tropics seem to be, getting more and more active, that the number of tropical systems is larger than what we remember during the 60s and 70s and even the 80s. And I think part of the reason, not all of it, but part of the reason is what we had on Friday. We had a tropical system in the Gulf of Mexico form. That was, of course, Tropical Storm Arlene. And I hope you didn't blink, Joe, because Arlene was there, and then all of a sudden she disappeared. She was gone. And I'm saying to myself, would they possibly have designated that invest area, that area of tropical activity, would they possibly back in the 1960s or 70s indicated that ramped up to a tropical system or a tropical storm? I don't think so. But now in the age of modern technology, every little thing that looks even vaguely like a tropical cyclone is designated as a tropical system and given a name. I don't think Arlene deserved to be named Arlene. I don't think that it should have even have been indicated as that. And the funny thing is that for people, especially in Florida, their iPhones were probably ringing and blaring and saying tropical storm, and the people jumping up and down like, oh no, here it comes. And before you knew it, it was there and it was gone. And again, I really don't. I scratch my head and wonder sometimes why they do this, why the National Hurricane. But I guess they forget. Well, based upon all of our criteria and our parameters, this certainly is a tropical system for all of 5 or 10 minutes. But
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. I agree with you. I mean, years ago, there were a number of storms that actually should have been tropical storms but weren't when they were happening, and they wound up being, upgraded in post-analysis. So those storms don't get missed as much anymore. I have to make the exception because the one in January was missed. That was well off the coast, but it's one of these borderline situations where they, finally went back and looked at the data and said, oh, you know what, this was probably a subtropical storm. Okay, I get that. But you're right. Nowadays, it's like every low-level swirl that's out there, if it's got one thunderstorm. What was it? What was the name of that hurricane in the tropical Atlantic a few years ago? Was it a sea storm? And it was literally a severe thunderstorm with a low-level swirl. And when you read the advisories, the thing was so tiny, it just said, the area of gales was something like 15 nautical miles. I mean, you really did they? I mean, I don't know. I don't do their job, so I hesitate strongly to throw stones into their glass house because they have their criteria. They follow it along as they best they can, and we should recognize the fact that they do a good job. These are things that fall through the cracks, and fortunately, it's not something that is a big problem, unless it falls through the cracks and they get a hurricane that forms at the last minute. We've had tropical storms blow up as they're just moving inland, and those are difficult to handle. So I'm glad it's not my job.
Right. And not my job either.
Right. And Chuck Cardillo hitting Super Chat. Thank you, Chuck, for hitting the tip jar on this Sunday morning. So why don't we get along to Briller Jeopardy, which I think you have.
Yes, I do.
And let's do that and then wrap up this Sunday because I want to go out and do a little fishing.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll let you do your fishing in just as soon as I can bring up, because this actually has been on hold for a while, this Briller Jeopardy. Yeah, okay. And it's a relatively fast and furious, easy one. On Briller Jeopardy, what is the average high temperature in June in the following 5 cities? And the first city on the list, the average high temperature in June, Joe, in the city of Atlanta.
Oh. You would think, because I have 3 Atlanta stations here, and they run news for hours every day. I mean, literally hours of news with hundreds of weathercasts, and I hardly ever watch. And I'm in Northeast Georgia in the mountains, so my climate here is a lot different than theirs. I'm going to say for the month of June, The average, so it's like
High
around
temperature.
June 15th, average high temperature. I'm going to say 80. I'm going to say 87.
Ding, ding, ding. You
Really?
you got it.
All right.
Right smack on the nose. Isn't that amazing?
Wow, 87. I took a guess. I was going to say
Okay.
88. Then I said, nah, I'll go 87. All right.
William Huber had 87 as well.
Oh, awesome.
How about Baltimore?
Baltimore?
Yes.
All right, so let's see. Baltimore, so 70, New York City, I'm trying 75.
Here's the ball.
80,
How does
all
he
right.
fare? I suggest this.
I'm going to say 80 around the 15th, half the way of the month. I'm going to say 82.
Not quite. Close. A lot of people
Matt
saying
Finley
83.
says 83.
However, William Huber got it right on the nose.
84.
84. 84.
Bill's 2 for 2.
Yeah. Well, how about Beantown? How about Boston?
Boston. 95, 78, 85, 81. I'll say 81 for Boston.
That's quite warm for Boston,
Is
Joe.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. Boston's tough because, there's a sea breeze issue up there. So that would probably impact it. So I guess it's in the 70s.
Christopedia came exceedingly close. She had 75.
75. So 76?
76.
David Carter hitting it at 76.
Spirit of 76, yes.
Okay.
And there's a play, by the way, going on up here in the New York area, which has
And
been
Patrick Darcy got 76. Go ahead. There's a play you were
there's
saying.
a play that's been held over like two times or whatever. Summer of 76, about two women who find each other in 1976, and all you see on the television promos is that they're clinking their glasses.
Oh.
They're toasting each other. I have no idea what the play is about, but it's been held over twice. So,
Well, maybe it's a tender, heartwarming story of a Cuban tobacco picker and the love for his plantation owner's daughter. Oh.
how about how about Buffalo?
My bean locata. What was that? Buffalo?
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Oh God. I mean, I'll say 79.
Well, there's a little bit on the mild side for Buffalo.
Okay. Anton Smith says 73. Chuck Cardillo 78. Environmental Coffee House 72.
Once again, Christopedia, oh so close.
At 75. James Davidson, William Uber at 74. So is it 76?
It's 76 again, just like in Boston.
Oh, okay.
And finally, the last one on this Sunday afternoon. Yeah, no, it's not Sunday afternoon yet. We're still 20 minutes away from afternoon. Chicago.
84.
Nope.
Okay. Chicago. Let's see. Chuck Cardillo says 83.
Very close, Chuck.
Anton Smith says 81. So is it 82?
It's 81.
81. Anton Smith and Sam Presley.
Yes.
Both, and Patrick Darcy saying 81.
Right.
Folks on the chat board did a good job today.
Very good. Yes, indeed.
So anyhow, so you got an engagement. I'm going to go do a little fishing because they are forecasting some thunderstorms here later this afternoon. So I probably have a window of a couple of hours.
What exactly are you fishing for?
There's in the lake here. There's bass.
Okay.
Rather large bass. There's also striped bass. Some very large, like 30 pounders. There's some big fish in this lake, and the lake here is very deep. The depth of this lake goes down quite a bit. So Lake Nottely. So I'll just be happy if I can land a couple of smallmouth bass. They're fun. Because I use light tackle, so this way when a fish gets on there, it gives you a good fight.
I remember when I lived in Throgs Neck, we used to fish right in the area or in the vicinity of the Unionport Drawbridge in Westchester Creek. And
Wait, so is the
Don't want to know what
Unionport?
kind of
Wait, is the Unionport drawbridge? Is that the one that the Bruckner Expressway used to, the low end of the Bruckner Expressway used to
exactly?
cross?
Yes,
You
exactly.
would eat fish out of that water? I mean,
Well, you wouldn't want to know. We didn't eat the fish.
oh my God, that's the
The
because it's
bulldog, this bulldog monster fish that used to live in Westchester Creek.
oh that thing had radiation in it, for God's sake.
I mean, well, yeah, and they had eels.
Yeah.
Eels. You more often than not, you'd catch eels. You wouldn't catch fish. But I mean, like the fish would come out of the water and say, "Get that blankety blank hook out of my mouth." What do you think that tickles you, moron?
I used to fish in the back of Pella Bay Park.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes also on the way to Orchard Beach, over there. Used to fish that area too. But yeah, the Unionport Bridge, that water was, because just up the way was all industrial stuff, so they would always pour all sorts of cancer-causing agents in the water there. Anyway, they don't do it anymore because all those industries are gone. So
Well, the drawbridge still, in fact, they've replaced. It was a double leaf bascule bridge. In other words, instead of having just one that went up, they
right,
had two. Then they got rid of one because they built the overpass above the bridge.
right.
And now, because of the fact that the last, part of the drawbridge originally was built for only like 20 or 30,000 cars, like 70,000 cars going over it. The bridge, they just said, look, instead of fixing the darn thing, let's make a whole new bridge. And they've been working on that now for the past 2 or 3 years. And the reason why they need a drawbridge is that the bridge, first of all, is very important because it provides links to the Hutchinson River Parkway and other cross Bronx Expressway line. But the reason they need a drawbridge is that at the head of the Westchester Creek is some kind of a fuel and heating oil company.
Yes.
And every so often they have to send a barge down Westchester Creek for deliveries, and the barges are always too big so they have to have the bridge open up for it.
Yeah, the fuel oil company had an Italian name, I think.
I don't know, Perillo or
Something Brothers.
something, brother, Cirillo.
Cirillo Brothers. That's what it was. Yeah, Cirillo Brothers.
Right. And so they'd come down the creek.
And it wasn't olive oil either.
It was olive oil. All right, Joe. Enjoy.
All right.
I'm appearing this afternoon with my wife, who's making a presentation at some place in Mahopac on behalf of the German American Club.
Well, have fun. I'm going to go fishing. Everybody have
I wouldn't go, but they're going to have all kinds of German delicacies like sauerbraten, and so I'm good for sauerbraten.
Good.
I'll take that. Last night they had it on CBS on 48 Hours. How many of you saw this? The woman who was killing people using poison in cheesecake.
God.
And like after the hour was over, and of course she's on Rikers Island now, serving a 21-year prison sentence. But after the show, my wife Renata says, "So what'd you think?" And I said, "I don't know about you, but I've got this hankering for cheesecake right now at 11 o'clock at night."
Would you make me some? Yeah, I was watching Forensic Files last week where the woman killed her 2 husbands with antifreeze, and then tried to kill her daughter and faked a suicide note for her daughter, saying that the daughter killed her 2 husbands. Anyway, it was.
And you want to know the funny thing is, that show on 48 Hours last night, like 20 years ago, on the Scott and Todd morning show, they used to do phone. They call people up and do like phone scams or whatever.
Right.
And they once did a scam where the guy calls up a bakery and he asks in an Italian accent to make a cake with goat cheese filling and put a little poison in. So that's why his wife would eat the cake and he'd kill the wife. And I said, my God, what they're doing on 48 Hours is just like that phone scam they did on WPLJ 20 years ago. I still remember the guy doing this Italian accent to the guy in the bakery. He said, Meraviglia, buon cumpleaños, grosso poca miseria te faccia bruce, amore Antonio. He wanted that all on the cake.
Oh,
they had goat cheese filling and the poison in them. And I said, fiction has come It's gone full circle now.
You'd be surprised what people have done.
This woman is doing what this phone scam did 20 years ago. Oh, maybe she
watch forensic files long enough, which I have because sometimes there's nothing on in the afternoon. But watch forensic files long enough, and you'll discover how many what lengths people go to get rid of somebody. So, but not that I plan to go to any lengths to get rid of you. So you're safe.
Okay, thank you.
As long as you keep your distance.
All right.
And on that note, let me just thank real quick Leon Probitsky, because Leon was a late super chat hit. So thanks, Leon. And we had Chuck Cardillo earlier. Thank you, Chuck. All right. See everybody tomorrow at 7:35. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Ta-ta.
Bye.